Hello everyone, today we're talking about the embarrassing end to a judicial misconduct complaint that the Department of Justice filed against DC District Court Chief Judge Jeb Boasberg. This entire episode grows out of a long-running tug-of-war between the Justice Department and Judge Boasberg that began, many of you will remember, back in March 2026. That was the original emergency hearing where the administration wanted to deport people immediately, without any due process, to the notorious prison in El Salvador known as SECOT. And at that hearing, Judge Boasberg was very clear. He said, turn those planes around. But remarkably, those individuals were sent to SECOT anyway, under circumstances that very strongly suggest contemptuous conduct by the Department of Justice. This was the moment when Emile Beauvais said the planes were going to land no matter what, and even suggested they might have to say F you to the court. And frankly, it looks like that's exactly what they did. There's a long and ongoing history here that we don't need to fully revisit right now, but the case is still active, and to Judge Boasberg's credit, he has not let it go. This appears to be one of the earliest and clearest examples of outright defiance and recalcitrance toward the courts by the Trump administration. In the meantime, as part of this ongoing war of words with Judge Boasberg, Bondi, through the Attorney General's Chief of Staff, filed a judicial misconduct complaint against him and loudly publicized it. The allegation was that during a meeting of the Judicial Council, the policy-making body of the judiciary, made up of chief judges from district courts and courts of appeals, Judge Boasberg raised the possibility that the Department of Justice might not comply with court orders. The department took great offense at this, which is deeply ironic considering that this is precisely what they had done. They then filed an aggressive, nasty complaint claiming that Judge Boasberg had hijacked the meeting, that he had no right to raise such concerns, and that suggesting the department might fail to carry out its legal duties was improper. Honestly, the entire thing was petty and childish, like one of those kindergarten posters that says, everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten. On top of lawlessness, the conduct itself was just low class. The complaint proceeded through the confidential misconduct process. We knew it had been transferred out of the DC Circuit, which would normally handle it, to another court. Ultimately, it landed with Judge Jeffrey Sutton of the 6th Circuit. Judge Sutton is a highly respected jurist, a Republican, and someone Chief Justice Roberts frequently relies on for special assignments. And then, just a day or two ago, Judge Sutton issued his decision. And if you know how to read these things, it becomes very clear just how foolish, and worse than foolish, this made the Department of Justice look. Sutton's opinion is calm, restrained, and judicial. It essentially says, they allege this but it's meritless. They allege that but it has no factual basis. The opinion reads like a dismissal of a sloppily drafted pro se complaint. Right at the outset, Sutton notes that the complainants say, see attachment A, which supposedly contains the offending statement. But there is no attachment A. It simply isn't there. Not only that, the court wrote back asking whether it should proceed without the attachment. And still, no attachment A was provided. Instead, the department submitted a Fox News transcript that reported roughly the same claim. Sutton, politely but firmly, explains that this is no better. It's not evidence. In other words, there isn't even an allegation for the court to evaluate. And even if there were, the complaint fails in every possible direction. There was nothing improper about Judge Boasberg's comments at a Judicial Council meeting. Discussing policy-level concerns like this is entirely appropriate. There was no pending case, no reference to any litigation, and nothing that could possibly prejudice the efficient administration of the courts. In reality, the complaint was so amateurish that it reads as though it were written by an angry first-year law student. That this came from the Attorney General's Chief of Staff makes it all the more embarrassing. Judge Sutton's opinion functions as a kind of remedial lecture to the Department of Justice, explaining basic concepts as if to a struggling student. This is the hallway. This is where the pencil goes. The tone is polite, but each point lands like a sharp slap delivered in judicial language. Within the legal community, the message is clear. The Department of Justice doesn't seem to care how badly it is being mocked or how completely meritless this looks to judges and lawyers. They are burning their reputation to the ground. This decision may not have major practical consequences, but within the DOJ and the broader legal world, it is yet another acute embarrassment. They went way out on a limb, and with a flick of the wrist, Judge Jeffrey Sutton cut that tiny limb off. They fell, and the entire episode became a full-blown debacle. This humiliation may not be obvious to the general public, but in legal circles it is unmistakable. I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching NewsDB.